Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It.
Yes. What a wonderful, wonderful day that the Lord has made, and I'm so glad to be here today. I just came back from Atlanta, and I tell you, there was a female pilot. You know, we had rough weather, and I'm going to tell you, she flew that plane.
I know that's right. That's how we do as women.
I'm telling you, on my way out the plane, I had to ask, who flew this plane? Because they were not playing, and I just felt so comfortable. But of course, I've already prayed, to God to send His angels upon that plane and get us home safely. But that pilot girl power was awesome.
Yes,
awesome.
Yes, pilot girl magic.
Yes. So welcome everyone.
Yes, welcome. This is actually, believe it or not, this is our 8th show.
Isn't that amazing?
Time sure does fly. It seemed like it was just a couple weeks ago when we were sitting up here for the first time introducing this show to you.
Yes.
So we thank you all for listening in, watching us every week. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all of the feedback that we get concerning the show. We also appreciate all the comments. I read every one of the comments, and you'll know because I always love, no matter what the comment is, I always hit the love button. All comments are welcomed, and we appreciate your support.
Yes, and I am Dr. Sharon Cradle, one of your co-hosts of the Sisters in Company Talking About It Live, and I'm glad to be here. And as I normally say, I am normally the cool, calm, and collected one of this duo.
And I am Sherelle Higgins, and I am your favorite host of this show.
Well, you see, she does not walk around without confidence.
No, I don't even know what that looked like. I have no idea what that looked like.
Yes, and for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we are biological sisters, as the promo stated, from the south side of Chicago, but we've been on the East Coast for a very long time, and we reside here in the wonderful DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia area.
Yes, and we're going to kick off this show with a Black History fact.
Well, first of all, we always have to kick it off
we got
with
to say
scripture.
our
No
scripture.
doubt about it, because that's
bad.
the foundation of who we are.
Excuse me.
So I want to share scriptures with you because it is so appropriate in terms of the topic that we're going to be talking about today. We're really going to talk about parenting, and we're going to have some real conversation. We have a wonderful guest that's going to share with us and help us to expand that conversation. But the scripture for today is 1 Corinthians 13:11 and 13:13. And 13:11 says, "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, adult, I put away the childhood ways behind me." 13:13 says, "And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." And so as we are talking about the topic of parenting, I want you to think about this. If you raise a child with love, affection, some limits, who can be loved and love, those who can care about others, and one who loves life and is mission-oriented, I think you're well on your way to having a productive adult in life.
Yes, and I love talking about the kids, so this should be an interesting show. But before we start talking about, how we raise our kids, let's talk about our Black History Fact. It's very timely because, as many of you know, next weekend, well, actually starting midweek, it's time for CIAA. And for those who know me, I get so excited for CIAA. I can't wait to get down there. I have 3 more days in the office, and I am on my way to Charlotte.
Can you share with us what the CIAA is? What is that?
I am definitely going to not only share with you what CIAA is, but I'm going to tell you some interesting facts about CIAA. Yes. The CIAA is a black basketball. Well, actually, it's not just basketball. It's a black conference tournament for black colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. And the CIAA was actually founded on the campus of Hampton Institute, now Hampton University, in 1912. So it's been around for a long time. It's the oldest African-American athletic conference in the United States. It was originally known as the Colored Intercollegiate Athletic Association and adopted its current name in December of 1950. But when the CIAA started, there were 16 schools that came together to form what we know as the CIAA. That's Howard University, Bluefield State College, Virginia Union, West Virginia State, Johnson C. Smith, Lincoln, that's in Pennsylvania. That's the school we always stomp during homecoming. Hayden Nicole, Winston-Salem's Teachers College, Delaware State, St. Augustine, St. Paul, Shaw University, North Carolina A&T, Morgan State, North Carolina College, Hampton Institute, and my beloved alma mater, Virginia State College.
Trojans in the house.
Yes, Trojans. Yes. So once they started the CIAA, after many years, they decided that they needed to add a basketball conference component to the overall concept. And after many discussions and planning and doubts, Talmadge Hill from Morgan State, John McLendon from North Carolina College, John Burr from Howard University, and Harry Jefferson from where? My Virginia State University guided the tournament idea, and it made its debut on March 6, 1946 in Washington, D.C. at Turner's Arena.
Wow.
And so, you see, they started this tournament with only $500. So that was very interesting to me because that just goes to show that you could take a little bit of money and make something great with it and something that's sustainable. And here we are almost 100 years later, well, at least almost 90 years later, still celebrating and participating in the CIAA. Now, you know how we do in our community. We have to make a party out of everything. And so the CIAA basketball tournament wasn't good enough. We had to then turn it into the party time, too. Yeah. And so if you ever go to the CIAA, I promise you, do not go to the day party and then expect to go to a night party. It won't happen. Not at our age. At our age, we go to the day party and then we go home and we go to sleep and we sleep it off to the next day because we start early in the morning at CIAA. We start at 6 a.m. usually because I'm an early riser. So we usually start real early, and by 6 o'clock p.m. we are wiped out.
And that is why I stopped going many years ago because I can't hang. I cannot hang.
I try not to miss it.
Yes.
And my favorite day party at CIAA,
of course,
is hosted by the Legends of Troy, the Virginia
Shout
State University Day Party on
Yes.
Friday. The party starts at 1 and it goes till 6. I get there at 1 because I don't want to miss 1 second of anything, and then I leave at 6 because by then I'm wiped out and I need to go take a nap. That usually lasts to the next day.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know where you get the energy from. So if I'm not mistaken, the CIAA tournament is one of the largest tournaments for historically black colleges and universities in the country. And it has moved around. Sherelle talked about that it started in Washington, D.C. And I remember when it was in Washington, D.C., it was in Richmond, Virginia. It was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it really has been in Charlotte, North Carolina for a very long time. I don't recall when it went there, but it's been there for a while. And it's been a while since I've attended one, but I do have fond memories of going to the tournament.
I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing during this time of the year but being at CIAA.
Yes.
It is just such an enjoyable time to spend fellowshipping with my alumni, meeting new people, just having an overall good time, and also supporting the Trojans.
Yes.
During the basketball games. So it's just an all around great time to have. It's always good to act responsibly and be responsible in terms of drinking and driving. I just want to put that out there so that we can always make sure that we're safe. I just look forward to it. Now, unfortunately for me, when I leave CIAA, I usually have a whole lot to do on the Sunday that I leave Charlotte, and this year is no different. So this year, I'm going to leave Charlotte probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be in Leesburg, Virginia by 11. I'm going to support my son for a soccer game, and I'm going to be in this studio by 3. And then when I go home, I'm going to crash because I'm going to be wiped out.
Now, Sherelle, I think that's great in terms of when we start talking about parenting. But Sherelle talked about something I think is very important for the CIAA tournament. The parties are not connected to the CIAA tournament in terms of, as far as I am aware, that the CIAA earns any type of profit from that. So I'm going to encourage everyone to make sure that you get your tickets and go to the game and support the players, because that is what it's all about. And the proceeds from that money help support those small colleges and universities. And, we're always going to put out a shout out for Virginia State University.
Always. And one last thing about CIAA. All my fellow alumni and new people I'm going to meet, can you make sure you have absolutely no germs to pass on to me? Because every year after CIAA, I am so sick, I cannot go to work for 3 or 4 days afterwards because I somehow catch the flu or some virus or something. But this year, I am going to load up on vitamin C. I'm starting today. I'm going to take a whole lot of it. So I, hopefully, as we say, hey, how you doing? Like we hadn't seen each other in a long time. I could be protected. But I'm on vacation afterwards anyway, so I got smart this year. I'm just taking off so that I can be sick in peace.
So I want to add something about a Black History fact, and it's a known fact, just to make a correction. I've heard a lot of people talking about Wakanda Forever, Wakanda the movie, and Africa. Please know that Africa is a continent and not a country. Yes. Let me say that again. Africa is a continent and not a country. Now, what is a continent? A continent is just a large landmass that incorporates or houses countries. For example, North America is a continent. The United States of America is a country. Canada is a country, and we exist on this continent together of North America to help support each other in our aids and missions. So I've heard quite a few people call Africa a country. Let's just stand corrected. Yes. It is a continent.
And I also heard on the radio this week that there is a city in Illinois called Wakanda.
I heard that.
And that they are getting so many prank phone calls.
Yes.
People are just really enjoying calling them up because they are connecting them to the Black Panther movie. So,
and finally, before we close out this Black History section, just as an educator in me, how many continents are there? 7.
All right, educator. Count them up on your fingers
North America,
if you need some help.
Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, South America, and Europe.
All right.
So make sure that when you are speaking to people and you're using those terms, that you're using them correctly. That's all.
Teach them to your kids.
Yes,
they need to know.
Absolutely.
So when they start being international travelers, they know exactly where they're going and what they're doing.
So we're going to just quickly shift over to our recap, because we like to do a recap at the beginning of the show. And we've already kind of talked about how our weekends kind of went. I think, Sherelle, you went to a soccer game today for your son.
No, I've been home all day.
Oh, you've been home all day. Well, okay.
I went.
Well, I went to my sister-in-law, Dr. Marcia Cradle's Women's Summit in Atlanta this weekend, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to say shout out to Marcia for the Sister Circle Summit. It was phenomenal. If you were there, you already know. If you weren't there, then plan to be there next year, February 22nd and 23rd, 2019, because it was truly, truly amazing.
I saw the pictures on Facebook, so I'd like to say congratulations to Marcia. I couldn't make it this week. My son's soccer schedule is all over the place, and they don't tell us in enough time. They just tell us at the last minute, oh, yeah, by the way, you have a game on Friday at 11 o'clock.
And finally, speaking of conferences, ladies, remember, my conference is on March 24th. 2018, I'm getting so many voicemail messages, text messages, Facebook messages. You want to get your tickets before the ticket price goes up on February 28th. And so please get your tickets. It's the 3rd annual Woman Thou Art Great Women Sharpening Women Conference. And you just look that up on eventbrite.com and you will find all the information that you need. And what's going to be important about this conference this year is that we're going to focus on women in cancer. And I tell you, everyone I've been talking to about that, everywhere I go, and I mention our focus, they're like, well, I'm a breast cancer survivor. My mom died of breast cancer. My cousin has colon cancer. I mean, it's just amazing. And so I know that through those conversations that I am on the right track in terms of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to have an oncologist who is a breast cancer survivor herself, and she hails from the great Howard University Hospital. We're going to have a pathologist and a technologist to really give us a well-rounded conversation around women in cancer. So you do not want to miss this conference this year.
And of course, I am your conference MC. And if you've been to the conference before, you know I have fun. We have a great time.
Yes.
And this year will be no different.
Yes. And then finally, as you all are aware, Dr. Marcia Cradle was our company last week where we talked about education of our youth because she is a high school special educator administrator. And so, we really want to just kind of hone in and really manage and talk about this whole issue of bullying and making sure that when we see those signs of our children being the bulliers, and we see our children coming home and they're making comments to us about what's happening to them in school, that we're paying attention to what our children are saying to us and not just brushing it off as, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just sensitive. Please pay attention to what your children are saying and really, really manage and monitor and partner with the schools to make sure that your child is not a bullier and your child is not being bullying.
That is for sure. And also, I'd like to talk about, can we move into Sister Chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because during Sister Chat, I really want to talk about the Florida shootings and how we parent our kids through this crisis. And also, on April the 20th is National Walk Out of High School Day.
Wow.
And if parents are having a conversation with their child about whether or not they should participate in that event and how that looks. So I had a conversation with my 15-year-old son to tell him that I fully support him participating in that event. But he must follow the rules. He must wear orange. He must, create a sign and understand what the walkout is all about. It's just not about skipping class,
right?
Because Lord knows he don't need to do that. So it's just not about skipping class. It's really about, forcing Congress and the White House to come up with some common sense gun laws so that we don't have to parent our kids through these type of tragedies. We want to make sure that we are having open dialogue with our kids about it because the kids are going to participate. Now, in my son's school district, the superintendent sent out a message, and the message went something like this. Dear parents, it is your child's right to protest. However, if they do on March 20th by walking out, we want you to know that it's very disruptive to the school and that they will be disciplined if they participate in the protest. They must have tore his behind up because he came back with a second message and said, clearly I got it wrong.
Yes.
The second message said, okay, so if your child participates, you don't have to worry about discipline because that won't be happening. However, while the teachers cannot encourage the kids to participate, they can provide a safe exiting of the school for the children and, be on hand to make sure that all stays peaceful. And so that's a much better approach than the whole, if you do, this is what's going to happen and it's not a good thing. Because when children who are future voters are participating in an event like this, we want to encourage them, because it's going to be the younger generation who's going to take over this world, and they're going to be the ones who are going to force Congress and y'all president to change the laws and put stricter laws into place.
And what I would like to say about that, and I think it goes along with the theme of parenting, when we make decisions, we need a sound support system before we start putting information out that's going to backlash on us. And so as a former educator in K-12, because I'm still an educator at heart in everything that I do, but as a former K-12 educator, sometimes you have to sit down and talk about the decisions that we're going to make and how it is going to be communicated to the public and what the public can possibly take away from that conversation. And so thankfully, that particular superintendent was able to make a quick turnaround, a 360 turnaround, to come back and make a different statement. But sometimes the damage is already done when we're just speaking and we don't, we really haven't filtered the information or tried it out with anyone else to help us craft the comments that we want to craft.
Oh, absolutely. And so, parenting is an everyday job. It is something that you have to be an active participant in. You cannot be a sometime parent. You cannot be a sometimes mother. You cannot be a sometimes father. You have to show up each and every day.
Yes.
You made the decision to have these children, and you owe it to them and you owe it to yourself to be present and accountable, and make sure that when you are raising your kids, that you are not so strict that they have no other choice but to break all of the rules. You want to make sure that you have some boundaries in place, absolutely. But the boundaries can't be you can't do anything. Let them go. Let them make bad decisions, the 12-year-old bad decisions at 12. Let them make the 18-year-old bad decisions at 18. You do not want your 30-year-old making an 18-year-old bad decision because they never had the opportunity to think for themselves.
I'm going to rub Sherelle on her back, because I can tell she's passionate about this topic, and we're going to get into this topic in a minute. Because we have a guest that's going to help us with this, and we're going to have a great conversation about it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. But before we take our break, remember we told you all that it's so very important that you click on listenvisionlive.com so that we can, get credit for your viewership and the ratings. And what I'm excited to say today is we have listeners from all over the world, and consistently, of course, the USA, Canada, Fiji, Hungary, Italy, Peru, Germany, Ukraine, U.S. Virgin Islands, France, Italy, Australia, and Malta. So shout out to all of you, and Belize. Shout out to everyone from each and every one of those locations for tuning in to our show every week and participating and giving us some ratings. So we would love to hear from you. If you can call in or, join us on Facebook Live and type in a message so that we'll know that you're there. So what we're going to do at this point is take a break, and we're excited that we have our guest, our company here today, and it's Dr. Stephanie Hampton Cradle, and we will introduce her more formally and appropriately after the break. See you shortly.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3:00 p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. you become the company you keep. What company do you keep?
Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and
Well, welcome back, everyone. We're so glad that you joined us and you decided to stay with us after the break. We are going to really transition into Let's Talk About It. We really want to talk about parenting, but before we do that, we have invited our company, Dr. Stephanie Hampton Cradle, to be our company today, our guest on the show. And Stephanie, those of you that follow her, that know her, and those of you who don't, Stephanie is an author. She's a business owner. She's a minister of the gospel. She is the mother of the fabulous Alyssa Danielle Cradle, who is my stepdaughter. And Alyssa is in the house today. And so we invited Stephanie on, and you will kind of understand why in a moment. So Stephanie, welcome. We are really appreciative that you took our acceptance and decided to come here today. So why don't you?
The invitation.
Yeah. So just why don't you tell?
Welcome.
Tell the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, I think Sharon kind of introduced me, but I just consider myself a voice crying sometimes in a great wilderness of people who really want to make a difference. And for the last few years, I have just really been involved in empowerment issues. I am a women's empowerment coach, teaching people proactively how to reach their destiny. And I think part of that destiny is exactly what you've been talking about today, which is the example of starting right. And
Yes.
that environment that you get in your home from your parents is very critically important to your future development. And I am the author. I've had a couple of books out, but I'm most excited about a children's book that I've written called Good Daddies.
Right.
And that book helps to share all of the insight, the wisdom, and the good stuff that my good father poured into me as a child, and it has led me throughout my entire life.
Yes, and I think that is just so phenomenal, and that's why we wanted to invite Stephanie on the show. And I'm going to let Stephanie not be so modest and just talk a little bit more about the book, because it's going to lead us into talking about parenting. The book it wasn't really designed to talk about parenting, so to speak, and so there's a purpose behind the book. Can you share a little bit more about that?
You know, my father passed away about 4 years ago from complications of dementia, a really diabolical disease that I am really hopeful that we can find a cure to, because it is affecting so many people, people who are contracting that illness, and families that have to deal with that disease. And after that time, as I watched my father, who was an educator, basketball player. My father actually played with Winston-Salem State University. 1953, running Rams championship. They won the championship that day, the CIAA, under the leadership of Coach Big House Gaines.
Yes.
So I got to throw in something for the running Rams.
Yes, that's right.
Winston-Salem
That's
State.
right.
At that time, it was Winston-Salem State Teachers College.
It was.
And so Dad graduated from there and was a really awesome guy. And I watched him at 6'4" just take a debilitating turn with what's called Lewy body dementia. After his death, I really felt like I had to do something. So I really am a doer. When things go bad, and you talked about the actual situations we're having with school shootings, I have to do something. And so I applaud the people who get up and do something, not just talk about it, but do something about it. Okay, so I encourage that. And I wrote Good Daddies. I got to get a plug out, shameless plug for
Get
Good
your
Daddies.
plug in.
Good Daddies, awesome. I contacted a high school friend of mine who actually her father also died from complications of Alzheimer's. And I said, I've got an idea for a book. I wonder if you'd like to co-author with me. And what we did was we put in this book all of the stories, all of the things our fathers taught us that were meaningful to us, that led us to this day. And we got an awesome illustrator, so I want to give a shout out to our phenomenal illustrator, Mr. Paul Miles, who is just an absolute genius when it comes to illustrations. And he put our stories to life. So one of the stories in this book talks about that good daddies tell their daughters that real frogs don't turn into princes just because you kiss them.
That's right. Yeah, go ahead now.
And
Frog is a frog.
Yeah, a frog is a frog, girlfriend. And then real princes don't turn into frogs just because you don't.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was the key message that my father sent me. So I just give that to y'all. That was for free.
Yeah. You need to go and buy the book to get the rest of the
That's right.
information.
But it's what fathers give their daughters.
Yes.
It's a sense of you are somebody, you are meaningful, you are valuable, and don't let anybody detract from that or
That's
rob
exactly
you
right.
of your value. That's what a father imparts to a daughter. And so we have awesome stories in there that our dads taught us, wonderful messages. And that's what fatherhood's really all about. And it's our job to honor our fathers, to shed some light on dementia and Alzheimer's so people can become aware. Check your family, okay? Don't just let them, think that they're just being honorary. Maybe something's going on, and you need to do that. But also to shed light and to shout out to good fathers.
Yes.
Because good daddies matter.
And I was going to
good
say
daddies
that
matter.
I couldn't have said that any better, because I believe in our society, moms are just put up on a pedestal, and moms are special, but so are daddies, and daddies matter in the life of females.
Yes.
Yes.
And they don't get enough credit for what they do for us. And I live, of course, in a household with a man who goes hard with his daughter to make sure that she knows she's loved, that she's not going to have to depend on anybody but herself, and to have some a serious high self-esteem, so that she's not getting involved with people who are not there to mean her well. And so daddies matter.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Absolutely. And I think good daddies matter, because one of the things that we think about is, whenever someone accomplishes something, we see these, sports figures
Yes,
on
we do.
television,
Yes.
and they're saying, hi, Mom, hi, Mom.
Yes.
And I thank God. I think I'm a great mother, but also I recognize that parenting takes two people to do it.
It
Yes.
does.
And it takes from the
Yes.
start. It's the inception of parenting. So I want to give a shout out to dads who are really making it happen for their children. You deserve to be honored. You deserve for someone to say hi, Dad, as well.
That's right.
Because a father
My
kind of
goodness.
sets the direction. He's the
Yes.
head of that family. He sets the
Yes.
direction. So I'm grateful for my good daddy, because I think having a good father in the home made me recognize early the value, that it's extremely valuable to have a father's love and protection, and that kind of like, behold, the only thing greater than yourself, somebody who really sows into your life.
Right. Absolutely.
Having a father in the house, let me tell you, single mothers, you cannot teach your daughter what a father is supposed to do. You can't make up for it. You cannot make up for your child's father in your son's life. You cannot be at all. The only thing you can be is that child's mother. And if for whatever reason that father is not present and available, you need to find that child a male mentor who will treat that
Carefully
child.
Yes,
one.
carefully, yes.
choose one.
Absolutely,
Yes, carefully
yes.
choose one. 'Cause
Yes.
not everybody is cut out. If he's not taking care of his own kids, and ain't spoke to them in
right.
30 days, don't make him your child's mentor.
Look, and that's going to be another conversation
Oh,
about
absolutely.
women and the men we select.
That's
You
right.
know,
Absolutely.
because we do
Absolutely.
select them.
Because
Yes,
you
we
can,
do.
You can choose wrongly, and
No
this thing
doubt.
too. Because I recognized early that I wanted my daughter. I didn't want my daughter going around looking for a man to replace a man that she did not get his love and affection in her
That's
childhood. So regardless of where you feel, what you feel as a single parent, a single mother, you got to understand the value of a person,
Yes.
of a child's love for a father. A father. I mean, the studies have shown this. I mean, there's so much research, and I've been just kind of researching
Yes.
the value of parenting, even though I knew it inherently. I knew it. because of my father I grew up with, I understand that if you don't have a father in your life, girls tend to do things like risky sex.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
there's some studies that show that if a child doesn't have a father in their life, they go out looking for daddy and all of the men in their
Yes,
lives,
they do.
and they start doing things that they should not do. They should not be looking for love. You're not looking for a daddy. You're
Yes.
looking for a husband.
Right.
And it's really important
Right.
not to look for a dad and a husband, because he will never be your father.
And that's what the scripture was about, about loving our children, showing them how to love, loving them so that they can go out and be loved, so they're not looking for love from somebody else because they have that void.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And ladies, let them be the daddy. You don't
That's
have
powerful.
to tell them how to be the daddy. They don't have to be the daddy the way you be the mommy. You make sure that you let them. I told this young lady, she was pregnant by her husband. I told her, I said, look, let him help. He don't have to do it your way.
Right.
If he can figure out how to change the diaper without ever taking off the old one, don't worry about it. Let him do it.
Stop it.
Don't try to control how he changed the diaper.
No,
'cause
but
he'll
if the
throw-
baby got an infection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, they got medicine for the infection. And that don't mean the baby won't get no infection because you changed the diaper the right way. Let him help. Let him learn how to do it his way.
No.
Let him do it his way. Because this is how the fathers end up just sitting back watching you and let you do all the work because you got the right way to do it and they can't do it right. So you go ahead and let them help and let them do it their way.
And they should be helping.
They should.
It was amazing. The study I just showed talked about the father. You're involved from the beginning. You're more than just a
Yes.
sperm donor, but you are a sperm donor.
That's
okay?
right.
So don't get it twisted. You are a sperm donor,
Yes,
and
yes.
so you need to think about it. You're about to be a father, and you
goodness.
need to protect yourself even before you impregnate someone else.
Oh,
How you
absolutely.
take care of yourself, how you take care of your own health. You're going to be a father one day, and you want to have some really healthy children. Health starts before conception.
Yes.
Not only in your physical health, but in your mental
mental
health.
health, in
You
your
need to be. You're gonna be
mind.
a father. Prepare yourself to be a father,
Yes.
and so that you can, give your children the stuff they need to be successful.
That's it
in
right
raising
there.
good, successful, healthy children.
And I think sometimes we use the word selfish, to mean something
Negative.
bad or negative. But sometimes parents need to be selfish and really step away from what they want and make sure that their children have what they need.
Oh,
And I say
absolutely.
you need to be selfish. And if you're doing what's in the best interest of your child and you are not receiving what you thought you needed or what you want, that's pretty good. Because what I believe, and I don't have children, but what I believe is that God is going to ask us the question, how did you take care of the gift that I gave you?
Yes.
Absolutely. And there's just some things that are necessary.
They're just necessary.
There's a couple things that I would just love to talk to fathers about. You have to be involved.
Yes.
Involvement is important to your child. Not just you're being there. You need to be there with some quality time.
Yes.
Also, it's not just the quantity of time
it's
you
not.
spend. It's the quality of time
Not
that
about
you
money.
spend. And so that involvement. Early on, I knew my dad was involved in my life. Good daddies is about good fathers, not necessarily perfect fathers.
Right. That's right.
Because
There's no such
I
thing.
didn't have a perfect dad.
That's right.
And one of the stories in this book is about how I jumped out of a window when I was a little girl because my parents were fighting. And I used to hear them say things like, we're going to, you take the child, I'll take the house, things like that.
Yes.
And one day they were fighting, and I decided I was tired of it. So I just got my little bag, and I went back and forth from the kitchen. I got some peanut butter and jelly and some water. I pushed the screen out of my window and jumped out of my window and started running toward a wooded area.
I was going to say, you did that in the country.
I did. Toward the woods. Didn't know where I was going.
Okay.
My aunt
At least you
happened.
had some food and
Yeah,
water.
and some peanut butter.
Don't ever get too
It's
mad
a
at
peanut butter.
My aunt saw me running, and she called out to my mom, Stephanie's leaving. She's running down toward the woods. My father came to the woods, and he was angry. He said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm tired of you and Mama fighting." My father reached his hand out and just said, "Come home."
Yes.
I never heard my mother and father fighting again.
No.
Never.
That's
And so
awesome.
what I learned from a child is that what I feel influenced my father.
Yes.
I had some pull with my father, and I learned early on how to make the word daddy means something.
something.
So I could say daddy, or I could say daddy.
Yes.
And my father would make it happen.
Yes.
So that's what we have. You have to be involved, and you have to have some influence in your child's life.
Yes.
Early on, it matters.
And isn't that what's happening now with the children who were at the school in Florida that got shot up? The children are speaking up.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are making their parents think differently about some of the voting decisions and some of the things that they support. And so that's a great example of when the child speaks up
That's
to the
right.
parent and the parents are listening and they're concerned, things can change.
Oh, absolutely.
And so let me ask you something. Let me ask you two ladies something, Sherelle and Stephanie. You know, how you were raised, how did it influence you when you became parents?
Ooh-wee. When I tell you Cheryl Vincent is all up through here. I have adopted a lot of my mother's parenting skills because they worked. You know, she wasn't always necessarily about beating a child.
No.
You know, she was real creative with them discipline punishments.
Yes.
I mean, the type of punishments that'll make you think, oh my goodness, I'm never ever doing that again.
Right.
You know, my mother used to do stuff like if she was too tired to beat one of the kids, she used to say, put it in the freezer.
She
And
did.
literally used to make us walk over to the freezer,
That's
open the
right.
freezer, and put it in. And then close the freezer and
pull it
trust
back
and believe she would remember that
get it
that
out the
behind whooping was in that freezer, and she
Oh,
the
wow.
next time you showed out, she would
Yes,
have you
yes.
get that out the freezer,
That
and
is
she would
funny.
deliver twice as bad
double
on
for
you.
your
Yeah,
trouble.
Absolutely.
that's right. That's right.
So I, you know, with my, you know, with my daughter, she was pretty easy growing up. She was the type of child. She was just like, okay, what you need me to do? I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that. Now the boy, he like, give me your best shot. What you're working with? Oh, that's all you got? I can stay up in my room for 13 days and don't eat
Oh,
or
my.
drink.
Oh, my.
That's all you have. So, you know, I have to just be more and more creative with it. But now I'm older and I'm tired, and and I know my daughter probably like, if I had done that, you probably would have killed me. But
Yes.
I can't do it no more. Just don't tell him. But all I have is some empty threats.
Yes, and Stephanie.
You know, I grew up with a mother and father in the home, so I can tell you that it shaped my thinking about things.
Yes.
So I was sharing, as I was driving up here today, how my father had a specific chair at the table. That was Daddy's
Wow,
chair.
yes.
You did not sit in my father's chair. That was my dad's chair. He had a special recliner in
Yes.
the den. That was my dad's chair. And so that was kind of the way I grew up. My father shaped how I felt like families should work. So, for example, at 9:30 every night, my father shut the house down. He locked the doors. He checked the windows. You didn't get in my house after 9:30 at night. So, in my viewpoint, daddies
Right.
stay home.
Right.
Daddies are protectors,
Wow.
and so
Yes.
that shaped my value system. You know, I want to be protected. I believe that a father steps up to the plate and says, you know, you don't come past this boundary in my house. If you get to my family, you get it through me.
That's correct.
And so that's kind of how I learned how a father works. My father was also a silent protector. I went to the first grade, and my teacher laughed at my book bag. The next day I went back to school, I wasn't in that teacher's classroom anymore. Now, I didn't know until I was an adult that my dad did that.
Right.
So I've learned how a father
Protector,
protects
yes.
as a child from a child's perspective. And some things I didn't even learn until after my mother told me, well, your dad went down there. Your dad decided to do this. You know, one of the another story in my book is we went to south of the border. We went to South Carolina,
Yes.
and I wanted to go to south of the border, and I was in the back seat jumping up and down, and no, Daddy, please take me. Well, he just sped right on past it. So as a child, I thought I had the meanest daddy. I mean, I thought this guy never took us. He never would go anywhere. I didn't know I was a child of the South. And that's why my mom packed a basket
That's
with
right.
chicken
Yeah.
and,
Those of you from the
Stop
South
anywhere.
know what she's talking about.
Anywhere.
Yes.
And everything. I didn't know because I didn't know why we wouldn't go to the bathroom.
Right,
I
right.
didn't know that why they would stop on the side of the road, open up both doors, and tell you to pee outside the back. So that, you know, I didn't know that until one day I was 30-something years old, and I said, Mom, Daddy was mean. And she said, baby, did you think you could go to south of the border?
Yeah, you did.
I did. I
Yeah,
thought I could,
absolutely you
but
did.
my father sped past it so that I, as a child, would not recognize that it was because I was a little black girl that I couldn't go to south
is
of the
right.
border. Now, I don't know if he should have said, girl, you're a little black girl, you can't go to south of the border. I don't know how I would how that would have shaped my identity. But I think that he protected me from the things that he did not want to impact me. And so that's kind of how I grew up. So I grew up as a protector, wanting to protect my child, wanting to give my child every opportunity, because that's what my father did for me and my mom did for me.
And isn't that exactly what the scripture talked about today? When I was a child, when I reasoned as a child. And so you didn't even have the capability of even reasoning and understanding why your father did that. Even if he had told you at such a young age, you probably didn't have the capacity to even understand it to the fullest.
Exactly.
So let me ask you all something else. Both of you planned to have children. And so what did you ever think about what kind of parent you would be before you had a child? And if so, did it pan out, the way that you envisioned you were going to be a parent?
I just got to say, I wanted to have a child, and I thank God for Alyssa. Every day I thank God for her, because it took me 10 years to have a child. And just for the women who are dealing with the inability to conceive and infertility, I tried everything to have a child, all kinds of drugs and everything. And I thank God that one day at church I was prophesied that I would have a child. So I'm thankful because she's a miracle child. But I always said I'm not going to be the same kind of parent that my parents were. I'm going to let my child go all these places. I'm not going to do all this. And all of a sudden I had a child, and I started thinking, I have become my mama.
That's right.
I heard the voice of Florence Hampton coming out of me saying, I'm not everybody's mama. No, you ain't going to do that. You're not going to disrespect. So I feel like in some ways I was my mom, and in other ways I wanted to expose my child, because I just believe every generation should build upon itself. That if my mom got to a certain level, the child of a granddaughter of a slave, and then she went to college, and that I just believe that my child should go further. So
absolutely.
I'm a firm believer in that. But I, in some ways, took some of those same parenting lessons that my mom,
And what about you, Sherelle?
I always said I wasn't going to have any kids. I just hold steady to that up until I had a child. It took me a while to also have Tasia. And then in between Tasia and Jalen, I had 3 miscarriages, and we can talk about that in another show. The struggle is real.
It is.
And, I knew I was not going to be anything like my mother or my father, even though I was already my mother and my father, which is not really necessarily a good combination. So my father is a man of few words, but he give it to you straight with no chaser. None.
Chaser.
Don't expect 1 ounce. And that's where I get that from. So I can't even run from it. And so, no, I was not going to be like that. I was going to be, I don't know what I thought I was going to be as a parent. But, being a parent, you don't have time to plan. Once the child comes, every day you get up, you don't know what to expect. All you got to do is be ready. Try to be proactive and guide them down the path, but you also have to be prepared to be reactionary to whatever things that they do. And so, when we first have kids, particularly that first one, them subsequent ones, they just here. But that first one, you try to treat that one special, and everything is so exciting. Oh my God, hurry up and say mama, and then all of a sudden they start saying mama and don't stop. You're like, Lord, please don't let them call my name no more.
Mama.
And again, it's so many topics we could talk about, but I like, one day we go on this show, we gonna talk about kids calling their parents by their first name. Yeah, not mine.
Can I share something with you all? There are so many nuggets to be taken away from the Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but the scene that stood out to me was when the general stood in front of that, what was that animal?
Oh, the big rhinoceros.
The rhino, and she just looked at it, and it stopped on her command. She didn't have to say a word. Now, isn't that what our mothers used to do with us? When I saw that, I just remembered, and I was not a difficult child. The only thing my mom had to do was look at me, and I would stop. And I saw that, and I'm thinking, what such powerful Black moms and women in this world. Only thing you have to do is look at something and command it. And I wish that we would look at our children that way, look at everything that's in front of us, look at it and command that thing, right? Because if we don't, we're giving away our power. That's power. And so that's what I took away from that movie. And when I thought about this whole topic that we were going to talk about, whole parenting, because I'm not a parent, but I've been an educator. I've been in Alyssa's life since she was a baby. And so trying to understand that and knowing that, you're not a parent, but how do you think about things? And everybody thinks about things differently.
I'm about to correct you on your show.
Okay.
Because parents come in all sorts.
Yes.
And there's a parenting responsibility that came
Absolutely.
to being a stepmom.
That is
Yes.
correct.
And I think that a lot of times people go, well, yeah, you're not the parent. Well, you are parenting because
Yes.
you are involved,
Yes.
and there are
Yes.
things you can do. You can do it well, or you cannot do it so well, and that really impacts. So I think the value that we give to parenting is not just the biological parent, because Big Mama sometimes took over that
what?
responsibility as a parent. Or when our parents were absent. For the first 3 years of my life, I lived with my Mom Marie. I called her Mom Marie. So I want to give a shout out to people who are in that parenting role, and they're helping. Even
I like that. I like what
know.
you just said about helping, because I think from where
drop
I
my
was coming
glasses.
from, that's okay. Where I'm coming from, though, is when you're not the biological parent and the parents are in the picture, you're there, and you have to just be very careful, in terms of what you're saying and what you're doing, because you really don't want to go against what the parents' ideas is. So you can share your perspective, but it's still ultimately what the parents' values are for their children.
And
it's
that's a whole
selfless.
nother topic,
Yeah,
blended families.
absolutely.
We can certainly talk
Yes,
about blended
absolutely.
families, but I just want to say, I definitely have a look that I give my kids and my husband too sometimes.
And I'm
But
scared right now. Just
Well, she don't scare me anymore.
Look, I looked at this guy at work the other day. He said, "Oh my God, I got to go."
Yes.
And I think that parents give us that look. I just really feel like it's so important. God didn't put us, and that's the preacher in me coming out, but God put us in a family, and those families were supposed to be, engaged and involved, and they're supposed to help guide and direct
Yes.
our children. Our
Yes.
children are very, very special.
Yes.
And it's so important. I'm, thankful for the lives of children. I'm glad to see children standing up and leading the way.
Yes.
But they are our future. Truly, they're our future.
Yes, they are.
And we have this awesome responsibility to guide them, to direct them. And so my stance to say is just be that parent that your child needs, and especially if you are a father,
Yes.
especially if you are a daddy. So I want to if you are a father today and you have not been a father, you can change.
Yes, you can.
You can impact your children's lives, and you got to go into it selflessly. So I
Yes.
think, Sharon, you were
Yes.
talking about it earlier, about it's not about you. It's about that life of that
Yes,
child.
it is.
So you haven't been a parent, step up to the plate.
Step up.
It's never too late.
Absolutely.
And also, on the flip side of that, children, if your parent has been absent and that parent is trying to make amends, open
my
up your
goodness.
heart and forgive them and accept the relationship for what it is,
My
because
God.
life is short. And, you can hold on to it, but it's not going to help you. Don't block your blessings. You never know what how that relationship can develop. And so if that absent parent is trying to reconnect with you, let go. Forgive and let go.
And and one of the things I think about in terms of what I do, I think about the bell curve, right? And so I was thinking about, children who commit these heinous crimes and things like that. And parents don't necessarily raise their children to commit crimes and to do these things. And so I think about the bell curve in terms of, the majority of parenting is kind of similar in the center. Then you have your extremes, right? And so sometimes your extreme is that your child is just so highly gifted and talented, right? And then you have the other end where the children are just really, doing some things that it's not anything that you would have taught them to do, or maybe you did. That's a whole nother conversation.
But about being an example.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And so I said this to Sherelle, and I don't know if you remember this. We were talking to some friends, and I said, parents should never say to their kids, do as I say, but not as I do. I said, that doesn't even make sense to me. Because I'm thinking if you're saying do as I say, but you're doing something different, kids are going to watch what you do, and they're normally going to emulate that behavior. And so it is so very important that we as parents be real cautious and careful about the things that we do in front of our kids to our children, because they are our future. Like Stephanie said, they are our future. And guess what? We're going to get old one day. And who's going to be there for you if you haven't taught your child or given your child that kind of love? I've heard people say, I haven't talked to my parents in 20 years because they were just mean to me, they molested me, or whatever the situation is. And now here they are old, and people are trying to track you down, and you're like, I don't want to have anything to do with that person. Yeah. And that is just a sad state of affairs. But parenting, we as human beings, we parent typically the way that we were parented.
Yes.
Unless we've gotten some help to help us deal with some of those issues that come along with being a child of a parent who may not have done it so well.
Right.
Well, that whole, and when Sharon said, do as I say, not as I do, sometimes it's appropriate. And as a parent, I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's appropriate because some of the things that I do as an adult is not for you to do as a child. And so, yes, you will do as I say and not as I do sometimes. But, I'm going to walk it. I'm going to walk the best path I can to show you different, to talk to you about different, but don't be confused. You cannot always do what I do as an adult.
I said that same thing. I said I would never tell a child certain things. Like my mother would say to me, it's because I said so. And I said, when I got to be a parent, I would never tell my child because I said so. And I have an inquisitive child. So, it's the why, and you want your children to ask you why. So don't stop your children from asking why. Why is how Einsteins are developed, okay? Yes. But she would just go, why? Because I said so. For right now. It's because I said so. Because I
let me think about it.
Let me give me a little bit of time. I might come back at you, but right now it's because I said so. But earlier you said that there had to be a standard for parenting. What is your standard for parenting? And yes, I grew up, thank God, with a godly mother and a godly father in a godly home. And they taught me certain values, certain love and acceptance. I was accepted as a child. Yes. But you know what? You have to have a standard for your life. And to me, it is train a child up in the way that they should go. Right. And when they are old, they won't depart. Doesn't mean they won't stray off from it. But there's a faith that you have that your child is going to grow from it. They will come back to the values that you've taught them. It's really amazing to me. I hear people talk, beating their kids out in the mall because the kid's cussing. Well, I don't know what a kid learned a cuss word, okay? Right. Because it's like if you got your child out there, your child is doing all these things. Where did that child get it from? And so I was ever mindful that my child was watching me. Yes. Watching me, and that I was that cussing. Example. That she
whether you cussing or not, she's still cursing.
But she didn't get it
my
from
daddy
home.
got it.
It don't matter.
I don't know where she got
You get
that
it from home. You get it from out in the street. Cussing is cussing. My son claimed he don't cuss, but every time I turn around, he got a story he need to tell. He need a pass to cuss this one time.
Well,
I understand.
They know yes. And I'm not saying you won't learn cussing in the street,
right?
But you know what cussing is not allowed in my house.
No, you can't cuss at home.
You got my house.
No, you can't curse at the house.
Right.
So
unless you get a pass.
Absolutely. Set some boundaries. Yes, and I'm not gonna cuss you.
That's right.
So if I don't cuss you, then you know it's not acceptable. So some things just aren't acceptable.
That is exactly right.
I ain't gonna cuss you, but I might cuss while I'm talking to you. But you cannot and will not curse at me in no shape, form, or fashion. That is that's one of the things. Do as I say, but not as I do. Because I may have to curse,
but not at you.
I'm trying to tell you something for the 13th time.
To make sure they understand.
Make sure they understand. Because sometimes when you say straight and you don't use no curse words, they don't understand. They act a little slow. And so I'm just saying, that's just me and my parenting style. And one day I'm going to tell y'all about the story of my husband cussing at the Wendy's with his 5-year-old daughter in the car.
Oh, that cussing thing hit home, didn't it?
So what we're going to do is take a short break, and time is just flying. We started a little late, so we're just going to go over a little bit, Jay, if that's okay. And so we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and complete the conversation.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. We'd like to thank our company,
Yes.
Dr. Stephanie
Thank
Cradle,
you all.
for joining us.
Enjoyed it.
Follow us on social media. We'll see you next Sunday. I may have
Get your
sunglasses
copy of
on.
Good
Get you a
Daddies.
copy of Good Daddies.
Yes.
And
Where?
next
Tell them how
Sunday,
they can contact you.
go ahead.
Follow me on Facebook, Dr. Stephanie Hampton Cradle, on Instagram at scradle, and you can get your copy of Good Daddy,
Yes.
soon to be at Amazon.com.
Yes,
right. Thank
and
you,
make
thank
sure
you.
and make sure that you get your tickets for the 3rd annual Woman Thou Art Great Conference, Eventbrite.com. We have some special treats for you for this conference this year.
Okay,
Thank you
so
all.
thank you all. Enjoy
I'm
the
sorry
rest
we
of
can't
your
take any
Sunday.
calls today. It was so phenomenal, but maybe next week when we do our recap, you can call in. Thank you all. Have a blessed afternoon.